quite shocking. That this would still be going on like this. And nobody, as I said last time, questions 22 or so Arab countries, and one Jewish country has to be questioned. What, you don't have enough with 22 countries? You want 23? And the world seems to think that that's in some way appropriate after what we've witnessed and the contributions that the Jews have given the world in so many fields over such a long period of time. It's really quite astonishing to me. And the most liberal people are the worst on this issue. The most left-wing, socialist, all these people, they're just astonishing in their attitudes. So in the end, the people that, you know, Israel tends to fall back on in our time are conservatives or right-wing people who would have been the people who would have been against the Jews in the old days. So it's a sad commentary on the present situation we see. So the only sadness that I think we have here in what he's talking about is that, yeah, the situation got acute enough, but they were not in a position to actually save the numbers that he wanted to save. There are numbers that have been saved. There are now 5 million Jews in Israel. That's quite an achievement. But on the other hand, I guess the driving force ultimately turned out to be a Hitler. You know, the driving force got acute enough, but not before no one imagined that they were going to also exterminate 6 million. You know, that's what's so, you know, it's hard for people to come to grips with it. So we have to have people go around and try to deny that it exists. So what, they say it's 5.5 million, you mean? It's probably 6 million. It could even be more. I wouldn't be surprised. It's really something astonishing. And I'm sorry to keep back on that theme, but when you read Herzl, you feel the pathos of it. It depends on the Jews themselves whether this political document remains for the present just a romance. If this generation is too dull, you see, too unimaginative, I feel that often in the work that I do, to understand these documents that I've been privileged to work on, people are too dull to understand the implications of them and to reduce them to a tiresome bore. Then to understand it rightly, a future, finer, more advanced generation will arise to comprehend it. Oh, I hope he's right. And to some extent, maybe he is. The Jews who try shall achieve their state, and they will deserve it. In other words, if you act, if you work for it, you will achieve it. There's nothing standing in your way. And they will deserve it. Yeah, now we're in a pessimistic mode only because of the nuclear threat we now are witnessing in the world. That is really, we've said, quite shocking. Okay, so that's his introduction, quite an introduction, and he's quite sure, you see, if the Jews try, they will achieve it. Let's see. Are we going to be like Rip Van Winkle, he says in the next section, you know, slumbering, waking from this slumber? Anyway, without enterprise, labor remains static, so we must be enterprising, he says. When he talks about fields of endeavor being closed to most Jews, he will go on to propose that, you know, the Jews in his time, and I think our own, frankly, this hasn't ended. In my experience, it hasn't ended anyway. Maybe you don't have enough experience of that to understand. We produce a huge number of what he considers to be mediocre intellectuals. You know, the Jews also maybe compared to some people's produce first-rate intellectuals, but he thinks there's a lot of mediocre intellectuals too. We can take this class where everything is closed to them in their advancement and put them to some work, you know, like today you can put mediocre intellectuals to work in the Silicon Valleys of the world, you know. There's all kinds of outlets for what one might call mediocre intellectuals. You know, people use their mind but may not be like Einstein or something like that. But he said that for him, we will be able to put them to work as the bureaucracy of the new state. You know, see, bureaucracies were always considered to be sort of intellectual level people. So he wants to put these people to work so they're not, they aren't frustrated, so they don't actually bring harm on the people by joining all these other movements that bring harm, like, he would, I'm sure, include the Jews who make up most of the socialist movements and so on. And, you know, why the Jews are out to liberate the working men of Europe is something you really have to ask. I mean, you know, let the working men of Europe liberate themselves. You know, what's the Jews got to do with it? And in fact, they're the ones going to get blamed for everything anyway, which is what happened in Europe, both in Germany and in Russia. And it's still going on in Russia now. Still going on in Russia. All the Jewish enterprise entrepreneurs are all being arrested, thrown into prison, killed, exiled, thrown put out to Siberia, false trials going on and stuff like that. You know, it just, that goes on endlessly because they're the ones who are enterprising after the fall of communism and so on. So the secret police have taken over again in Russia, and now we have a secret police state. I hope you follow the news enough to know how they poisoned this person in London a couple of days ago. You follow that? Yeah, they poisoned this guy in London, like they, up to their old tricks. Back in the 80s, they were hitting people with poison umbrellas, you know, who were dissidents. This guy was a person who worked with Putin in the secret intelligence. That's where Putin came out of, the NKVD, or the, whatever it was called. Keeps changing its name, and he was a colonel like Putin, and he defected. And then he revealed some of the secrets of the workings of the intelligence. Okay, there will be people who don't like him. But more recently, he's been writing articles overseas against the situation in Russia. And then when this woman journalist was killed outside of her apartment, in the hallway of her apartment building a couple of weeks back, he was getting the documents to show who was behind that. And he met someone for dinner or lunch or whatever in London, and again, one of these, someone slipped him a poison pellet of some kind that seemed to have been laced with radioactivity, and the guy's hovering between life and death now in London Hospital. His organs are almost destroyed, and he, you know, basically is getting bone marrow cancer. What is this on the floor? Do you know? Huh?
It's lit from my jacket.
God,
but I'm
don't put any more down there. She's floating around. You had a dead
I'm sorry. I was listening to you the whole time, though. I was just that happened.
We'll pick that one up too, will you? Because it's floating around. I don't want to, you know, it's beginning to blow all over the place. Like, what is that? A dead animal? Okay, so what we're saying is that, you know, the Russians are back to their old tricks again, and the Jews mostly are the ones that are being blamed for things